Hello, my friends. I recently listened to a podcast series from Audible called Spielberg, and it details the time an imposter went to a private Catholic school in the United States pretending to be the nephew of Steven Spielberg, and I really didn't like this. I didn't like it for one major reason, which is the producer of this series. I don't know how to say this in a diplomatic way. But basically, she was the victim of some kind of sexual assault, and because she was the victim of some kind of sexual assault, she kind of narrates the situation through her own personal life. And I get that we always bring our own personal things into how we view the universe and how we think about different things, but it doesn't always work like that in real life. There are situations that are different, and I think this one is different. Jonathan Taylor Spielberg, that's the guy's name now, is an imposter. He's a guy who went to this American high school and he pretended to be somebody he wasn't, the nephew of Steven Spielberg, and it's really unclear as to what his motivations were. I mean, he's interviewed in the series and he says that, this was all a script and then he was trying to do some kind of script to sell a movie, but that doesn't make any sense. Movies are not sold that way. You write the script, you get an agent, and then if people like it, they'll produce it. And usually, unless you're somebody like Matt Damon or Ben Affleck, or Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, people are not going to produce your script. And even if they produce it, it you're not going to they're not going to produce it with the idea that you'll star in it. So that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But the central thesis of this whole thing is, did he do a crime? And yes, of course he did a crime. This is impersonation. It's fraud. He should probably go to prison, and I think he did go to prison. But the central thesis of the producer of this series is that the guy was a pedophile. And she uses three arguments to prove that the guy was a pedophile. The first argument is that at the same time he was discovered being in this high school and pretending to be a high school student, he was accused by an older kid, like an 18-year-old, of unwanted sexual advances. The police investigated this and determined that this was some kind of other scheme to extort money from the Spielberg character. And by the way, I keep calling him Spielberg. That's not his real name. He's the child of an Iranian immigrant to the United States. So he's not related to Steven Spielberg whatsoever. He just created that character. So the police say that this thing never happened and they investigated it and it was closed, and the person making this series was never able to actually look at the evidence herself because it was closed. So she concludes that yes, the guy was telling the truth, and it was horrible how the police treated this guy. And it might be true. It might be true that the guy was telling the truth, but you don't know that, right? And claiming that it's true just because you believe it's true, I think is a bit irresponsible. It's only your opinion, right? And I think it's really, really dangerous in this world to assume things when you don't actually have the evidence, especially in a case like this, because I can see that she wanted to make this Jonathan Taylor Spielberg character into a pedophile, right? That was her. Like, I think she really believes that he is a pedophile, but I think that he's a criminal for sure, but I'm not really convinced that he's a pedophile. So that's her first argument. So she actually doesn't have any evidence for that, but she claims, yes, 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 he is. The second one is that the police found a book in his apartment when they did a search of his apartment when they arrested him. And the book was some kind of German book. And the police said that it was on the border of being between art and something worse, like it was pictures of kids. And it was on the border between art and pedophilia. The name of the book is never mentioned, and so Spielberg says that it wasn't pedophilia. It was a book about about psychology, because he was trying to understand, teenage psychology when he was in this high school. And again, the producer of the series, she hears that this book exists, and she automatically assumes that it is a book of pedophilia, pedophilic images, and so she uses this as evidence. Now, it should go without saying that I'm not supporting pedophiles or pedophilia in any way. I'm just saying that you need really solid evidence to accuse somebody of that, right? And we don't know the name of the book. Like, a good investigation would be trying to find the name of the book. And if you can't find the name of the book and you can't see the images yourself, don't mention it. It was a published book, so you should be able to find it, right? But she doesn't, and she just uses it again as another argument. And that's why I don't like this series. I think that she just needs to say that, oh, it's a thing that supports pedophilia, and she doesn't actually have to prove anything. It's so annoying. And then her strongest argument is that some teenage girls, underage girls, were put in a situation where Spielberg said that he was going to the Teen MTV Music Awards or something, and that he could take one person. And to take this person, they needed to have a better outfit because they didn't know how to dress, and then he would take them to these really expensive places where they could try on stuff, and then he would need to see them undressed, to figure out how they would actually look like in these expensive dresses. And here, I think this really happened. But does it make Spielberg a pedophile? It certainly makes him a criminal, but I don't think he did it because of any prurient thing. It seems again to be about control and how good he is about creating this personality. I think that he's a scammer, he's a huckster, he's a fraudster, and I think instead of focusing on that aspect of the crime, the production really wants to prove that he's a pedophile, because that would make him the blackest of black criminals, not in a racial sense, but in a moral sense. Yeah, so I don't buy it. I think the producer's own personal trauma, unfortunately, prevented her from actually being able to investigate this story in a way where you can clearly show that the guy did a crime. It did affect people, yeah, but you don't have to make him a pedophile to do that. Like, there are other criminals who affect people all the time. He's a weird other category where some of his crimes do lean into the sexual nature, but they're not exclusively that, and I think that's the major problem. So for that reason, I'm going to give this series a 2 out of 10. If you like what I do, please like the video, please leave a comment, and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Bye-bye.